Rewind 93.9 WYEC, mid-morning in the cities. I'm Sean Patrick. One of my favorite conversations is always baseball, and I'm having fun with this conversation because I'm a Cub fan, and I get to have fun this year. And joining me now to talk baseball is Craig Calcaterra with NBC Sports and Hardball Talk. And Craig, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm having a lot of fun this season with baseball because I'm a Cub fan. What have you seen of this team so far, and is this the biggest story in baseball right now?
Certainly the best team in baseball right now. I know a lot of people pick the Cubs to win the Central, a tough division as it is, but they're exceeding expectations. And if you would have told people, even with those expectations, that Kyle Schwarber was going to go down early in the season and be gone for the year, and Jason Hayward was going to start slow at the plate, people would start to wonder, hey, are they digging a hole? Are they going to be behind St. Louis and Pittsburgh? No, they're just fine. There's just so much good going on with this team. The biggest thing about them, I think, is that the rotation is deeper and better than it was last year. Everyone knows what Jake Arrieta can do. He's actually exceeded expectations. Some people thought he'd fall back. Then you got John Lester looking like John Lester again. You got Jason Hamill pitching like a Cy Young Award winner. This is some pretty impressive stuff so far.
What is the story with Arrieta and PEDs? Why is this? Why am I seeing this trend on Facebook?
Because people are dumb and people have nothing else to talk about with the Cubs. Sure, he's on PEDs if developing a cutter is considered a performance-enhancing drug. That's the biggest difference between now and when he was in Baltimore. They jerked him around between starting and relieving. He was bad out of the stretch when he played in Baltimore. People forget this. He really had a hard time repeating his delivery when he was in the stretch. He goes to Chicago. He's given a starting job. He has better coaching. He works on a cutter. He gets better. Amazingly, a guy then pitches well. That's how that works. People just have nothing else to talk about.
Craig Calcaterra with NBC Sports and Hardball Talk is our guest today on Mid Morning in the Cities. And talking baseball, for me, obviously, the biggest story is the Cubs. But what, so far for you, has been the biggest story of this baseball season?
Well, just how bad the National League is in general, I think, is probably the biggest story. It's not the most fun story to talk about, but this is definitely a league that's got a couple of good teams at the top. You've got the Cubs, you've got the Mets and Nats are all right. A couple of those teams in the West are okay, but Cincinnati, Milwaukee, San Diego, Colorado, Atlanta. I know Philly's exceeding expectations right now, but I think they're going to fall back down too. You got a lot of gimmies in this league right now, and it's call it tanking, call it whatever you want. It's probably something that over the course of the summer is going to affect attendance. It's probably going to affect revenue, and Major League Baseball needs to figure out a balance between wanting to clamp down on how much teams can spend on the draft and international free agents and stuff, which is what is inspiring this tanking, and then what actually means good baseball.
Tanking, that's an interesting, because that's the first time I've heard somebody talk about tanking, and that is fascinating. This is something that I don't know, have we seen anything quite like this?
Well, it's funny. There's a semantic thing with it. The term tanking came from basketball and hockey mostly. It's a basketball thing in the last few years of intentionally losing and mailing games in to get a good draft pick, and the 76ers were yelled at for that and everything. And in baseball, it's kind of a new concept. I think we've always had a situation where there are teams that know they're not going to be competitive, that try to rebuild, and sometimes you just got to cut down to the bone and start over. But it seems like we're a little far in that direction too much now, and Atlanta's a great example. I'm a Braves fan myself. I've been watching this team for 30 years, and it's a situation where they gave no care whatsoever to the Major League product. They knew that they were rebuilding. They have made a lot of trades in order to get rid of contracts and to get prospects, and they're building their farm system. That's good. The problem is there's absolutely nothing at the Major League level. It was just destined that this was going to be a 100-loss-plus team this year, and you got to ask, what does that do for the health of the game if you are just literally mailing in your Major League season in order to build for next year or the year after?
Craig Calcaterra, Hardball Talk, NBC Sports, our guest today on Mid Morning in the Cities. We're talking baseball. Of course, for me, obviously, like I mentioned, the Cubs are my story, but Chicago has a lot of baseball to talk about right now. The White Sox, where did this come from?
I don't know. Winning it for Drake LaRoche or something. I have no idea. A lot of, maybe he's inspired. It was addition by subtraction. The 12-year-old kid had to go. He was dancing. No, I'm just kidding. we're seeing some performances here that we did not expect. I mean, seeing Melky Cabrera come back and hit like he did a few years ago, that's been a huge thing for them. Adam Eaton has been healthy and been good. I mean, the real thing here, though, is the pitching staff. Matt Latos, where did he come from? He's 4-0. He's got a microscopic ERA. No one thought that he would be doing anything to add to this team, yet there he is. Carlos Rodon, everybody knows he's going to be good, but he's certainly a lot better than last year. Chris Sale, Jose Quintana. And they're surprising a lot of people. I don't know how sustainable it is. I still think they're a bat or two short, but so far so good. Chicago World Series would be a lot of fun. It'd definitely make the travel arrangements better for us writers.
No doubt about that. That's
what it's all about, right? I mean, that's really what it's all about.
What has been your favorite story of the year so far?
Good question. Favorite story of the year? The Cubs story is great to see. I think seeing Seattle look a little bit better and making the AL West a very interesting story. You've got the top four teams right there are separated by a game, and Houston, who's probably the best team in that division, is the only one really struggling. I mean, we could see an amazing race out in the American League West, and so that one's fun. The White Sox are probably up there too, just as the fans deserve it. They've not been great recently, and seeing them bounce back is a good thing too.
How much trouble? I mean, if you were the manager in Houston right now, how nervous are you? Because you've been given this incredible team to work with, and it's not turning out.
I think he's probably safe. The thing about A.J. Hinch in Houston is he has probably a closer relationship with his front office just because of the way that team works than almost any manager. It's kind of like Bob Melvin in Oakland, where there's never a doubt. The front office and the manager are in it together. They communicate very well. I feel like if it's a situation where the team is underperforming and you have people grumbling about what the manager is doing and you have the manager grumbling about what the front office is doing, that's a toxic situation for a guy, and that's what's going to lead to someone getting fired. But I think Hinch is probably in these meetings every day. They know what the challenges are. They know their rotation is underperforming. They know their bullpen is underperforming, and they're probably all talking about what moves can be made. So I think he's probably safe there.
All right. Well, Craig Calcaterra, NBC Sports and Hardball Talk. Love what you guys do over there on NBC Sports Radio. It's fantastic stuff, and thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.